after hearing about housing developments in Pakistan and how to find happiness and now just incredibly inspirational poetry, they have me up last. And I hate to tell you, but I'm the internet dork. And so they saved the talk on computers to be the last. Don't ask me why. But with the brief time that I have, I want to talk about the changes that technology is offering in and across the world, both socially and in the world of international development. So I think that we can start with something that has become self-evident in a lot of ways these days. And that is we are living in the midst of what I would call a technological revolution. It's become so self-evident that even saying that type of sentence is almost a little hackneyed. It's a little tired. We all get it. We're all on Facebook. We all have Blackberries. We're all on Twitter. We spend our days and we spend our lives in front of screens. But what I don't think that we've done is actually think enough about how this new information system affects our own lives, how it affects our social patterns, our relationships, and the lives that we lead. So tonight, I'd like to pose a more narrow question in the short time that I have, which is, how do all of these changes online affect the world of international development in particular? What changes have they offered, and what are the opportunities that they bring? So to start, just to set the scene, does anybody have any idea how many mobile telephones there are now in the world? Any ideas? So out of 6.8 billion people, there are 4.6 billion of them that have mobile telephones and are connected to their peers. On Facebook alone, there are over 400 million people, half of whom logged in at some point today. On YouTube, 200 million videos were watched just in the past 24 hours. Across the board, across the world, we're living in a society that is incredibly networked and incredibly more closely connected. But what's truly significant about the world that we live in is not just the scale, because we can all realize that the numbers are huge. It's the shifts that in this information economy are offering for how we live our everyday lives. I'd say there are two main ones. First off, we've all become authors. Even if you're not yet on Facebook, even if you are in the middle of Senegal, or Kenya, India, and all you have is a mobile telephone, you are still the author of information, and you are still the author of content. If you do happen to have an internet connection, as just about over 1 billion people do regularly now, then you have an even larger set of opportunities to make a digital imprint on the world. Secondly, we live in a world where our information comes to us completely differently than it did in the past. In the old model, there were a few people who decided what news we would read on a given day, what would appear on any given evening news segment. We would all just sit back and watch. And of course, now there's been such an explosion of filters that we now don't even realize how much information comes through our inboxes, our Facebook feeds, our Twitter feeds, or wherever we are on a day-to-day basis on and across the web. It's important to bear in mind that this is happening globally, that even though we sit here in New York tonight, all across the world, people are coming on the network. The way I like to think about it is if you zoom out and think about the globe altogether, 10, 15 years ago, you had a few lights just lighting up here in the United States and in Western Europe. These were the people who were plugging in and connecting to one another. But today, all across the globe, you have lights coming on the network everywhere, in every country. And in addition to those lights coming on, you also see connections being made. In this world, I think that there are two clear opportunities that haven't previously existed. The first is the opportunities for collaboration. One of the most inspiring examples that many of you may know is just happened a couple years ago. Right after the Kenyan elections in 2008, Kenyans all across the country were dealing with a huge wave of post-election violence. There were questions about whether the state was going to be able to make it through, whether a power sharing agreement was going to be able to be brokered. And in a world where everyone was now equipped with cell phones, the questions were, how do we use the technology that we have to better document the challenges that we face in this time? Just a few people posing this question in Kenya meant that what emerged on the scene was a network of SMS users who were able to text in at any given point the violence that they were seeing, the stories of the people that were being hurt. This network was called Ushahidi. The same basic concept that people all across a single country who are connected to a grid and who can contribute to the content can now offer a brand new opportunity for collaboration is now being used in new ways. We saw it just recently in the disaster just after Haiti. Ushahidi again, if you go on their website today, you can see the stories, or to be more precise, the updates from people all across that country in the midst of the recovery after the earthquake and now the slow and painful process of rebuilding. This is the first new opportunity that a more networked world offers. It's the opportunity to collaborate on problems that wasn't previously possible. Secondly, and I think more relevant to my own new project called Jumo, is the opportunity for information to be delivered much more efficiently to the people who are most likely interested in it. So I think it's pretty clear that today we live in a world where the amount of information is increasing rapidly. These numbers that I just suggested are going to double or triple even in the next couple years. So given that all of this information is being produced, the challenge is, how do we make sure that we don't suffocate? Because every single day you hear people, I get so many emails, or I can't log into Twitter. There's just too much information there. Or I can't keep up with the next new thing on the internet. There's just too much information out there. So the natural evolution in the system, I would argue, is the evolution of information delivery architecture that makes it easier for people to get to the information which is more likely to interest them. I believe that on the internet in general, this particular opportunity has not yet been seized, including in the international development space. So this is the basic idea behind where we're starting with Jumo. There are a few key assumptions. First is the amount of information that is being created is increasing exponentially. Secondly, we assume that people want to be critically engaged with the world around them. We're aware of what happens in the world. We want to do things, but we often find ourselves saying, I don't really know what to do. I don't really know how I can give back. Thirdly, we believe that as more information is delivered to a person, as a person becomes more aware of the problems that are in front of them, they're more likely to actually take action. The better that we understand problems and the more that we can sense their importance and the challenge that is embedded therein, the more likely we are to actually take action and become more engaged. This is where Jumo enters the picture. What we're creating is a network of individuals that are connected to organizations that already exist all across the world, that are already doing amazing work, organizations like Acumen Fund and hundreds and hundreds of others. But a network that connects these individuals to these organizations in a way that can actually develop and foster relationships for the long term. So how do we do it? There's 3 key steps. The first step is connection. We need to find the organization that is the most relevant to you as an individual. We're all different people. Some of us are politically conservative, some of us are politically liberal. Some are interested in sports and recreation, some of us are really interested in the arts. We all think about the world in different ways. That's an opportunity now. Previously, it wasn't possible for us to necessarily find that 1 in a million type of organization that really connects with us. We believe it is now. And the challenge is to model a person's taste to connect them with that organization that is doing good, important, relevant work. The second part is that once that connection is actually made, it's up to us to open up the information channels that already exist so that a relationship is actually built between the individual and the organization. Keyword there, relationship. We're all here tonight because we believe in Acumen Fund. We believe in this organization's mission. We believe in the importance of patient capital. We know Jacqueline Novogratz, her own story, and we know the importance of our presence here tonight, not just because of our support of Acumen financially, but because of the emotional and personal investment and commitment that we have here. We have a relationship to Acumen Fund. I believe the internet can make possible a similar type of relationship for the Acumen Funds and for all of the other organizations all across the world. But the only way that's ever going to happen is if people can actually get to know these problems, get to know these organizations, and get to know the stories of the people that they touch. 10 years ago, even 2 years ago, that would have been nearly impossible. There wasn't enough information out there. It wasn't being created by the organizations or by people around them. And it would have been incredibly difficult for a person to actually get to know an organization from afar. In the world we now live in, that is possible. We have to build the pipes that help people not only find those organizations, but then connect with them in a long-term way so they can understand what those organizations are about and why it's important to support them. If we do this, then the third and most important point will then emerge from the system. And that's enabling people to actually take action. Substantive action, which is giving money potentially, but also giving time, giving their skills, giving their knowledge in a way that implicates their identities and their own stories in the network of organizations that are out there. This is a big challenge. There's 3 big pieces here, and we're just getting started with Jumo. Right now, we're trying to set up an organization that is able to build these pipes for all of the organizations that exist there across the world. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take us some time to do it. But I hope that as we continue to grow, you'll all continue to follow our progress. I'd like to finish just by highlighting what is a point that is not too evidently hit upon. I think people in my industry and maybe and probably in general think that this technological revolution itself is almost magical. You know, when we connect on our computers, the fact that we can, be in the middle of nowhere but still be connected to the New York Times or information sources, or the fact that we can go on a trip and meet someone who's been touched by an Acumen-funded program and keep up with them because of email, because of the internet. These things seem almost magical. But the fact of the matter is, they're just technologies. And it's up to us in all of our different fields, not just with Jumo, but no matter what we do, to take stock of the technology that exists and to use that to an extent that actually strengthens our bonds and increases the resources of the organizations that most need that support. Just because we have the technology doesn't mean that the technology is going to be used for good. It's up to us to make sure it is. Thank you for having me.